Welcome to our deep dive. We're going to be looking at gacha game revenue today.
Yeah.
Specifically, we've got the October 2024 Sensor Tower report,
Fresh from...
fresh from the Sorgacha gaming subreddit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this data is really interesting.
Yeah.
It tells us a lot more than just, the money coming in.
Right.
It kind of reveals what's captivating players, what are they spending on and why.
Exactly. Like what's really hot in the gacha gaming world right now.
Yeah. And even though this is just mobile revenue,
Right.
we can get a sense of wider trends
Okay.
in the industry.
Okay.
What are people's habits like?
Mm-hmm.
Even hints at the economic climate, like how much are people willing to spend?
Interesting.
And we're also going to sprinkle in some of that spicy community commentary
Yeah.
from the subreddit.
Love it.
Get a feel for what the players are saying.
All right. So first up, the game that's on everybody's minds, Genshin Impact.
The big one.
It's still at the top.
It's incredible.
Raking in the cash 4 years later.
I know.
It's like the Energizer Bunny
It just keeps going.
of gacha games.
Yeah.
What is the secret sauce? What is keeping people so engaged, and how is that impacting the rest of the market?
Well, it's a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
You've got consistent content updates.
Okay.
Every 6 weeks, there's always something new.
So you never get bored.
Exactly. And the character designs,
Right.
they're so strong.
Yeah.
They really pull people in visually and through their stories.
Yeah. They do a good job of building up hype
Oh, for sure.
for those new characters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think a huge factor, honestly, is the open world.
Right.
That feeling of freedom and discovery is what a lot of other gacha games are missing.
Okay, so that leads us to a very interesting data point here.
Okay.
The release of Metaphor. Refantazio.
Oh,
This is a big deal.
huge. Brand new IP.
From the creators of Persona.
I know. Everybody was so hyped for that.
Yeah, Persona is known for that incredible world building.
So, of course, everyone thought this was going to dethrone Genshin.
Like, this is it.
Yeah.
The Genshin killer.
Although one...
Finally, but it didn't.
It didn't.
It did not happen.
I know.
What happened?
Well, Metaphor had a huge launch, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But it couldn't quite topple Genshin.
Wow.
Especially in the Japanese PlayStation Store.
Interesting.
Now, this report obviously focuses on mobile.
Right.
But the fact that Genshin is performing so well on PlayStation 2...
Even against a direct competitor?
Yeah, against a direct competitor, it tells you something.
What's that tell you?
It means they've captured a good chunk of those console gamers, too.
Okay.
So that mobile revenue that we're looking at might just be the tip of the iceberg.
So Genshin Impact is a force of nature.
A force of nature.
It's setting a high bar for every other gacha game.
For sure.
Okay. Lesson 1 learned.
Go.
So let's move on to another Hoyoverse title.
Right.
Honkai Star Rail. This one kind of burst onto the scene earlier this year.
It did.
But the revenue has been...
A little bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Are players jumping ship?
No, hold on.
Okay.
We need to be clear here.
All right.
Honkai Star Rail's revenue is still very strong.
Okay.
What we're seeing are fluctuations,
Okay.
which are pretty normal for a gacha game,
Okay.
especially during a content lull.
All right, so time for a quick ELI 5 for
Sure.
anyone who doesn't know that term.
Right.
A content lull basically means there haven't been any major updates or new characters released recently.
Exactly.
And these lulls are a natural part of the development cycle.
It takes time to make this stuff.
Right.
You can't just pump out content forever.
Right.
But they can impact player spending.
So you're saying don't panic about Honkai Star Rail just yet.
Exactly. The dedicated fan base is a really positive sign.
Okay.
Honkai Star Rail has gotten a lot of praise.
Yeah.
For being so mobile friendly.
Right.
It's got a really fast release schedule for new characters.
Okay.
Which keeps things exciting.
Right. Keeps people logging in.
Exactly.
So as soon as that new content drops, we can expect to see that revenue spike again.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So if you're a Honkai Star Rail fan, hold tight.
New adventures are coming.
Okay. Speaking of mobile friendly, though.
All right.
This brings us to another Hoyoverse title.
Okay.
That's had a
unique trajectory.
Yeah, we'll call it that.
Yeah.
Zenless Zone Zero. Or ZZZ, as the cool kids call it.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
It launched with a lot of hype.
A lot of hype.
But it hasn't quite reached the same heights as its siblings.
Sure.
Is this the black sheep of the Hoyoverse family?
Well, ZZZ is interesting because it kind of lives in a more niche space in the gacha landscape.
Right.
It's an action RPG, very stylish urban aesthetic, fast-paced combat.
Yeah.
It's less about exploration, more about pure adrenaline-fueled action.
I see.
But you're right, it's not as mobile-friendly
Right.
as something like Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail.
Yeah, and that seems to be reflected in the revenue.
Yeah.
I'm also seeing a lot of comments from players
Oh, yeah.
about the demanding specs for ZZZ.
Makes sense.
So for those of you wondering what that means,
Yeah.
basically it takes a lot of processing power to run this game, especially on a phone.
Yeah.
Some players are actually choosing to play on PC
Okay.
or PlayStation where it runs a bit smoother.
Interesting.
Which brings us to an interesting point.
What's that?
ZZZ's mobile revenue might not be telling the whole story.
Right.
It might actually be earning a significant amount from those other platforms.
That aren't included in this report.
Exactly. That's something to keep an eye on.
Definitely.
And here's where things get even more intriguing.
Right. I'm listening.
It looks like the overall gacha market is shrinking. Now, before anyone hits the panic button, is this a sign of the apocalypse?
Right.
Or is this just kind of a natural evolution? What's your take?
Okay. Deep breaths, everyone.
Okay.
It is too early
Right.
to call this the end of gacha games.
Okay, good.
There are a few factors at play here.
Okay.
First of all, we are in a global economic downturn
Yeah.
that always impacts how much people can spend on entertainment.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know, having to make choices
Yeah.
about where your gaming budget goes.
I feel that.
Yeah,
It's real.
very relatable.
Plus, we've seen a huge surge
Yeah.
in high-quality gacha games in recent years,
Okay.
which means that players are spreading their spending
Okay.
across multiple titles.
Instead of just focusing on one.
Yeah, it's like having too many delicious desserts on a menu.
Haha. I like that analogy.
You can only choose so many.
Right. You can't eat all.
You can't eat them all.
You can try,
You can try, but...
but you'll probably get sick.
Exactly.
So it's less about the gacha market dying.
Right.
More about it kind of diversifying and maturing.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's growing up.
All right, so before we dive into that,
Okay.
let's talk about a game that was supposed to shake up the market
Right.
in a big way.
Mm.
Remember all that hype around Wuthering Waves?
Oh, yeah?
It was touted as the Genshin killer.
The Genshin killer.
But the reality seems a little different.
A little different, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, Wuthering Waves definitely came out swinging
Okay.
with some very aggressive marketing.
Right.
But that approach
Yeah.
might have backfired.
Ooh. Tell me more.
Well, all that pre-release hype
Mhm.
focused so heavily on comparing Wuthering Waves to Genshin Impact,
Okay.
almost to the point of obsession,
So they basically picked a fight they couldn't win.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were emphasizing how it was bigger, better, faster, stronger than Genshin.
And all those comparisons created a really hostile environment.
Yeah, it did.
So the conversation around the game,
Quickly turned negative.
instead of celebrating what Wuthering Waves did well,
Mm-hmm.
it got bogged down in all that negativity and all the comparisons.
It's a good lesson
Yeah.
for any developer, really.
What's that?
Sometimes trying too hard to be the killer
Yeah.
can backfire.
Right.
What's important is focusing on your own strengths,
Mm-hmm.
building a community that loves you for what you are.
It's about carving your own path,
Exactly.
not trying to bulldoze somebody else's.
I like that.
Okay, so before we move on to those hidden gem games that I've been teasing,
Oh, yeah.
there's one more thing I want to touch on
Okay.
that popped up a lot in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Economic anxiety.
Ah,
A lot of players are mentioning financial concerns
yeah.
and needing to be more cautious with their spending.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, we can't ignore the impact of the global economy
Yeah.
on the gaming world.
Right.
Even one as fantastical as gacha.
Absolutely.
People are feeling the pinch everywhere, having to make those tough choices about where their entertainment budget goes.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that even in these like virtual worlds,
Yeah.
real life issues
Yeah.
have a real impact.
They do.
So how are developers responding to this?
That's a great question, and that's something we'll be talking about
Okay.
in part 2.
Ooh, a little cliffhanger.
Little cliffhanger.
All right, so stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our Gotcha Deep Dive. We saw how the big guys are doing, but I'm curious about the underdog stories.
Yeah.
Before we get into specific games, though, what about the players themselves? Any interesting trends in what the community's saying?
Definitely. One thing that's super clear is that player spending habits are changing.
Okay.
With so many good gacha games out there,
Right.
people are getting much more selective
Makes sense.
about where they're putting their time and money.
Yeah, you can't play
Right.
and wail in every game that catches your eye.
It's like trying to keep up with every streaming service.
Right.
Eventually, you got to pick your favorites.
Yeah, exactly.
So instead of pouring all their resources into one game, a lot of players are engaging with multiple titles.
Okay.
Maybe picking one or two for heavier spending.
Okay.
And then casually enjoying others.
So spreading the love a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And this is noticeable, especially in the comments about Genshin and Honkai Star Rail.
Oh, interesting. What are they saying?
There's a feeling of content saturation among some of the longtime players.
Okay.
They've already invested so much.
Right.
And with this constant stream of new characters and events,
they're
just feeling less pressure to spend on every banner.
So they're being more strategic.
Way more strategic.
Like they've reached peak gacha, climbed the mountain, and now they're kind of just taking in the view before they decide where to go next.
That's a great analogy.
And this ties into another trend that we're seeing, the rise of the casual spender.
Ooh, interesting.
So these aren't necessarily the mega whales,
right?
But they're not completely free to play either.
Right, they're somewhere in between.
Yeah, they're happy to spend a bit here and there.
Maybe on a battle pass.
Yeah.
Or a monthly subscription.
Okay.
But they're much more thoughtful about those big purchases.
So it's less about that blind brand loyalty.
For sure.
And more about choosing those experiences that really resonate with them at any given moment.
Exactly. It's like they're treating gacha like a buffet.
Ooh, I like that.
Sampling a little bit of everything, seeing what they like.
Trying all the flavors.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a growing segment of players.
It is.
And it's something that developers are going to have to adapt to.
Absolutely.
It's not just about catering to the biggest whales anymore.
Nope.
Okay, but let's get back to some specific games for a bit.
Okay, sounds good.
You mentioned some interesting observations about Zenless Zone Zero's future. What's the community vibe there? What are people saying?
Despite the lower mobile revenue, the player feedback on ZZZ is actually pretty optimistic.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of folks think that its unique combat and that art style will help it attract a dedicated following over time.
So it's a slow burn?
Kind of, yeah.
But there's potential for growth.
That seems to be the consensus, yeah. And the players who enjoy ZZ, they are passionate about it.
Okay.
And they're really confident that word of mouth and future updates will bring in new recruits.
It's a reminder that a game's success isn't always immediate.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes it takes time to build that community.
Absolutely.
Find your niche.
Yeah. And speaking of finding your niche, let's shift gears to a game that took a very different approach.
All right.
Wuthering Waves.
Wuthering Waves.
It aimed for instant dominance.
Yeah, but we saw how that turned out. What's the sentiment like now that the dust has settled?
It's a mixed bag, honestly. Some players are disappointed, feeling like it didn't live up to the hype.
Right.
While others are enjoying the combat and exploration.
Okay.
The consensus seems to be that aggressive marketing campaign.
Right, with all the Genshin comparisons.
All the Genshin comparisons set some unrealistic expectations.
Oh, for sure.
It's a good lesson here.
Yeah.
In a market this crowded, you need to stand out.
Yeah.
For the right reasons.
Right.
Focusing on your unique strengths, building genuine hype, and fostering a strong community is much more sustainable than trying to be the killer of something else.
It's about carving your own path.
Exactly.
Okay. Before we move on to those hidden gem games, there's one more thing I want to touch on that we saw popping up in the comments.
Yeah.
Economic anxiety. A lot of players are mentioning financial concerns and needing to be more cautious with their spending.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's impossible to ignore the impact of the global economy on the gaming world.
Yeah, even one as fantastical as gacha.
Absolutely.
People are feeling the pinch everywhere.
They are.
And they're having to make tough choices about where their entertainment budget goes.
About what matters most to them.
Exactly.
Right.
So how are developers responding to this?
Well, we're seeing some interesting trends.
Okay.
Some developers are offering more bang for your buck.
Okay, how so?
Things like guaranteed pity systems.
Right.
Where you're guaranteed to get that top tier item after a certain number of polls.
Okay.
Others are focusing on customizable bundles, letting players choose what they want.
Instead of relying on pure chance?
Yeah, exactly. More control.
So it's about giving players more control.
Yeah.
More transparency. More value for their money.
Absolutely, and that's a good thing.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's get to those hidden gems you mentioned.
Okay.
I'm itching to hear about these games that are defying expectations, proving that there's more to success than just being a big budget behemoth.
Right. There's more to it than just money.
There are some great stories here.
There are.
One that stands out is Tears of Themis.
Tears of Themis.
It continues to perform incredibly well.
I know. It's amazing.
Even though it didn't have any major banners in October.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier.
We did.
How its success seems to be tied to a super dedicated fan base.
Yeah, incredibly dedicated fan base.
But what else is going on?
Well, it's found this really sweet spot within the autumn genre, offering this compelling blend of romance and mystery and card collecting gameplay.
So it's really resonating with those players who are looking for that more narrative-driven experience.
Absolutely. It's not just about the flashy banners and limited-time events.
Yeah.
It's about building a world characters that people actually care about.
It's a reminder that a strong story can be just as powerful as any 5-star character.
I agree with that.
And speaking of punching above its weight class, let's not forget Limbus Company.
Limbus Company.
They managed to pull in some really impressive revenue with just the release of a new season.
I know, it's pretty impressive.
So what's the secret sauce there?
Limbus Company is fascinating.
Okay.
Because it breaks a lot of gacha conventions.
Okay.
It's dark. It's challenging.
Okay.
Unforgiving.
Really?
But it's cultivated this really passionate fan base. That appreciates its unique blend of storytelling and gameplay.
It sounds like a cult classic in the making.
It kind of is.
It's a game that demands your attention.
It does.
And it rewards those players who are willing to delve into its complex world.
Right. It's not for the faint of heart.
It's a good reminder that there's room for all kinds of games in the gacha landscape.
There is.
You don't have to follow the crowd to find success.
Sometimes all you need is a bold vision, a talented team, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we wrap up part 2.
Okay.
I want to bring us back to something we discussed earlier.
All right.
The importance of considering console and PC revenue when we're looking at the gacha market.
It's all part of the picture.
We can't just focus on mobile.
We can't.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
The mobile revenue numbers are just one piece of the puzzle.
One piece.
A lot of these games, like Genshin Honkai Star Rail, even Zenless Zone Zero, have huge player bases on other platforms.
They do.
And that revenue isn't reflected in this report.
It's not.
So while the mobile market might be showing some signs of contraction, the overall picture could be much healthier.
It'd be much healthier.
Than it appears.
It
highlights a key point.
What's that?
The gacha gaming market is evolving.
It is.
Player preferences are changing. The economy is playing a role.
Definitely.
And developers are constantly adapting.
They have to.
It's a dynamic and exciting space.
That's for sure.
So much to think about.
Yeah.
As we head into the final part of our deep dive.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But there's still so much more to explore.
I know. I can't wait.
Especially when it comes to the future of gacha gaming.
Welcome back to the final part of our gacha deep dive.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. Well, yeah. From Genshin's dominance to those like amazing underdog stories.
Yeah.
We've uncovered so much about what makes this market tick.
Absolutely.
But now I'm really curious, what does the future hold for gacha?
Ooh, that's the big question.
What trends are on the horizon?
Well, one trend that I'm super excited about is this growing focus on cross-platform play. And progression.
That's huge.
We've already seen how important that console and PC revenue can be.
Right.
So it makes sense that developers would want to encourage players to engage across multiple platforms.
It's like the play anywhere, anytime dream that gamers have always had.
Exactly.
And Genshin has already proven that it can be done successfully.
Genshin's kind of leading the way there.
Do you think we'll see more gacha games adopting that model?
I think it's inevitable.
Really?
It just makes sense.
Why?
Well, it's a win-win.
Okay.
For players and developers.
Right.
Players get that seamless experience.
Right. Across all their devices.
Exactly. And developers benefit from increased engagement and potentially higher revenue.
Plus, it just makes sense from a player's perspective. You're not locked into one platform.
Yeah, you can switch between your phone, your PC, your console.
That's it, whatever's convenient.
At the moment.
Another trend that I think is worth keeping an eye on is how these gacha monetization models are evolving.
Oh, yeah. We touched on this a bit.
We did. We talked about guaranteed pity systems, customizable bundles.
Right. Giving players more control.
I think those are steps in the right direction.
Definitely.
What other innovations are you seeing?
Well, some developers are experimenting.
Okay.
There are these hybrid systems that combine gacha with more traditional purchase models.
So like a mix?
Yeah, a mix.
Give me an example.
So you might have a base game that you purchase outright.
Okay, so you buy the game.
You buy the game.
And then?
But then there are optional gacha elements for things like cosmetic items or extra content.
So it's like finding that sweet spot between giving players options, but also making sure that the developers have a sustainable revenue stream.
It's all about balance.
But at the end of the day, even with all these new models, all this fancy technology, the heart of a good gacha game is still the characters,
absolutely,
the stories, and the story.
That's what keeps people invested.
100%.
And thankfully, we're seeing developers really stepping up their game in this department.
Crafting these richer storylines.
Yeah.
More nuanced characters, exploring different themes and genres.
One thing that I'm loving is the growing diversity of representation that we're seeing.
Absolutely.
More and more games are featuring characters from all walks of life.
It's fantastic.
Different backgrounds, cultures, identities.
So important.
It's so refreshing.
It really is.
It makes the games feel more inclusive.
More relatable.
More real.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap things up, I want to throw out one final question.
Hit me.
A little provocative, maybe.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
What role do you think AI will play in the future of gacha?
That's a great question. It's a big one.
It is.
AI is already being used in different stages of game development.
Right, procedural content generation, analyzing player data, all sorts of stuff.
And I think that role's only going to expand.
Oh, for sure.
In the coming years.
Absolutely.
I can see AI being used to personalize that gacha experience.
Okay.
Imagine like getting character recommendations, event suggestions tailored to you.
Based on your play style.
Based on your preferences.
Yeah, like what you actually enjoy.
Or even AI-generated storylines that adapt to your choices.
That would be cool.
That would be very cool.
Yeah, AI could also be used to make the gameplay more dynamic and engaging.
Okay, how so?
You could have things like adaptive difficulty, procedurally generated quests, even like AI-powered characters that can interact with you in a more realistic way.
It's both exciting.
It is.
And a little mind-blowing.
A little scary, maybe.
Maybe a little. But that's the beauty of technology.
Right.
It constantly pushes the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
I think the next few years are going to be incredibly exciting for gacha games.
Okay.
New technologies, evolving player expectations, and a constant drive for innovation.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to some really groundbreaking experiences.
Well, there you have it, folks.
That's it.
A whirlwind tour of the gacha gaming landscape.
From top to bottom.
From the biggest names to the hidden gems.
We covered it all.
From current trends
to future possibilities.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But I have a feeling this conversation is far from over.
It never really ends.
What stood out to you the most today?
Yeah. What surprised you?
What questions does this raise for the future of gacha?
Keep those questions coming.
Keep exploring those awesome games.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you on our next deep dive.
See you then.